Welcome. Take a deep breath and allow the modern world to soften its grip. The quiet hum of electricity, the glow of screens, the endless calendar alerts. Let them fade, just for a little while. You are here, nowstill.com, and safe. And we're about to drift. Slowly, gently, into another time. A time long before empires and cities, before alphabets or calendars, before anything like boredom. As we know, it could exist. This is a journey not of excitement, but of understanding. Not of drama, but of detail. We won't rush. There's nowhere to be but here. You'll simply float on the current of ancient rhythms of sunrise and soil, of stone tools and worn hands. Tonight, we'll explore what life may have felt like, sounded like, and moved like, in a place most of us never imagine with much clarity. A Bronze Age farm. A quiet corner of early human civilization. You may have read about kings and warriors, great migrations, or glittering temples. But the world was mostly made not by swords but by hands in the dirt. We'll begin, as you might have thousands of years ago. Waking up in a simple dwelling just before the sun rises, surrounded by animals and smoke, and the constant, humbling demands of the earth. Let's begin with why you wouldn't last a day on a Bronze Age farm. The faint light of early dawn seeps in through the reed-thatched roof. Your eyes blink open not, to silence but, to the soft rustling of straw, the low breathing of animals just a few feet away, and the faint creak of wooden beams shifting in the morning chill. You sleep on a simple mat, stuffed with straw and soft-eye wool or skins. There is no pillow, just your folded arm or perhaps a worn cloth bundle. Your back is stiff. The cold has seeped in through the dirt floor. You ache already, and the day hasn't even started. You are not alone. Beside you lies your partner, your siblings, perhaps an elder relative. The air smells faintly of smoke, animal hair, and the sour temps of sweat soaked into fabric that hasn't been washed in weeks. As you sit up, the first chore begins not with movement, but with memory. What needs tending today? Which animals need water? Which fields are ready? Which tools broke yesterday? There's no breakfast to prepare yet. Not until the fire is coaxed back to life from its smoldering coals. Not until water is fetched by hand from the nearby stream. You step outside into a misty morning, your breath rising in little puffs. Your feet are bare or wrapped in thin leather either way. The ground is cold and uneven. You carry a wooden yoke across your shoulders, 2 clay vessels hanging from either side. You've walked this path to the stream 1,000 times. It winds past the animal. Pens goats, bleating softly. Pigs nosing through straw and through a patch of withered grass where your younger brother once found a shiny stone and swore it was magical. The stream isn't far, but it takes time and effort. The water is clear, cold, and slightly metallic to taste. You lower your vessels carefully! A slip means a long day without enough water. Back home, the fire is kindled. Smoke curls lazily upward, filling the low room with a woody haze. You set a simple mash of barley to cook grain, pounded roughly by hand with a stone quern. The sound of grinding is constant, rhythmic, soothing in a way. Grain into flour, day into night. One cycle after another. Your body is already sore, and the sun has barely crested the hill. Now it's time for the fields. You carry a crude howooden, with a chipped stone blade lashed to it with animal sinew. It works. Slowly. The soil is stubborn, clinging. Your job is to loosen it, row by row, square by square. There is no machine. No horse-drawn plow yet. Just your weight, your will, and the shape of the land. You may be lucky enough to work with other siblings, cousins, neighboring families. You move together in a loose line, not talking much. Conversation takes breath, and you need every bit of it. Around you, the world is alive with subtle sound. The low buzz of flies, the rustle of birds in nearby brush, the occasional grunt of animals from home. The sun warms your back, then your neck, then stings your scalp. There is no shade. By mid-morning, your muscles are trembling. Your hands are raw. You pause, wipe the sweat from your brow, and take a sip from the clay jar tied to your hip. The water is warm now, but still precious. Some days, you dig. Other days, you sow pushing tiny seeds into loose soil with the tip of a stick. Or you weed, pulling up invading growth, root by stubborn root. Or you harvest stooping, cutting, binding. Each action is hard. Each one repeats. There is no break. There is only the work and the need to finish before the rains come, or before the sun sets, or before a pest outbreak ruins the crop again. Food is life, and food is never guaranteed. A single failed harvest could mean a winter of tight rations. Hunger is familiar, here not constant, but always close. A ghost behind your shoulder. In the afternoon, if the fields are done for the day, you may mend tools, patch walls, carry manure to the compost pits, or help with the livestock. Goats are clever. Chickens are chaotic. Pigs, smarter than they look. The animals must be fed, fences checked, hooves trimmed. Evenings are for cleaning, repairing, preparing. Your day, from sunrise to long after sunset, is full, quiet, repetitive, and full. As twilight falls, you sit by the fire. The same mash of barley, now thicker. A bit of boiled root or wild greens. If you were lucky in your foraging, meat is rare. A luxury save for feasts or ceremonies. You eat slowly, not out of pleasure, but to make the portion last. Your eyes grow heavy. The fire crackles low. You speak a few soft words thanks to the ancestors. Perhaps a whispered hope that the roof won't leak if it rains tonight. You lie down once more on your straw mat. The scent of earth clings to your skin. The smoke clings to your hair. Your hands are calloused and sore. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again. Pause. Gentle fade. Let the listener settle in the quiet between stories. Up next, we'll shift our focus to one person and unlikely figure from prehistory whose quiet innovation changed how people farmed forever. A name almost forgotten, but whose legacy endures in every field, every seed, every meal. When you're ready, we'll begin the story of the farmer who changed the world. Let us now turn our gaze from the many to the one. In the blur of Bronze Age, history where names were rarely written, and most of the lives passed quietly into the soil there, occasionally emerges a figure whose influence echoes not through monuments or conquest, but through transformation. Quiet transformation. This is the story of one such person. A farmer, a thinker, a patient observer of the land. We do not know their name, though we may give them one. Let us call them Ina, for ease of telling. Whether man or woman, we cannot say. But their actions, recorded only in what the soil remembers, may have shaped the rhythm of human survival in ways that stretch far beyond their modest dwelling. Ina lived in a small riverside settlement, not unlike the one we visited earlier. It sat near the bend of a slow-moving stream, the banks thick with reeds, and fields stretching outward in gentle, irregular plots each, one hacked and scraped into existence with labor, not luxury. Like others, Ina rose with the dawn, carried water, mended tools, shaped the soil. But unlike others, Ina observed something subtle. Noticed that certain patches of land when rested or left wild for a season seemed to yield better crops the following year. That fields where goats had lingered drop in their waste produced taller barley with fuller grain heads. That where beans had once grown, the soil stayed richer, less brittle. To the others, these patterns were incidental. Life was a cycle, and hardship was fate. But Ina thought differently. Ina began to experiment. Quietly. Not with declarations or drama, but with careful attention. First, a small section of field was left, fallow not planted, just watched. The neighbors questioned this. Why waste space? Ina didn't answer, only observed. Then, in another year, Anna mixed crops barley and lentils together. Strange, risky, but the yields improved. Gradually, subtly, and still, Ina said little. There was no lecture, no moment of triumph. Only the slow realization season by season that something was shifting. That her techniques, if followed, might spare the village laner winters. That the land could be persuaded, not just demanded of. It is possible that Ina was among the first to intuit what we now call crop rotation, the deliberate planning of what is planted, where, and when, to protect the health of the soil. Or perhaps it was domesticational wild strain of grass, carefully selected and resown year after year, until it became something new. A tame crop, dependable and fuller. Or perhaps it was something even simpler. A method of storing seeds better. A more efficient way to dig irrigation channels. A new tool shape carved from bone or wood. We'll never know exactly what it was, because Enna's ideas, like her name, were never written down. But what matters is that the pattern changed. After Enna, farming was never quite the same in that valley. Other families began to mimic her habits. Rest their fields, mix their crops, watch the land, not just work it. Over time, the yield of the settlement improved. Not dramatically. Not all at once, but enough to feed more mouths. Enough to spare a few members of the clan from the field to work in pottery, or trade, or even to travel. Enough to make it through a bad harvest without losing everyone. Ideas, especially quiet ones, do not always travel in straight lines, but they ripple. One village notices, then another, then a dozen more. The method, not the name, spreads. And perhaps, hundreds of years later, in another region, another continent, someone would make the same discovery again. The same quiet wisdom. The soil has rules, and the patient can learn them. Ina, this unknown farmer, changed the world. Not with fanfare, but with persistence. With curiosity. With small risks and long views. Her hands were dirty. Her back was bent. But her mind was watching the land, listening to it long before science had a name for such things. Tonight, she is mostly forgotten. But you might imagine her still standing in her field at dusk. Grain in her hand, watching the wind shift across the grasses she coaxed from wildness. And somewhere, in the quiet cycles of your own life, perhaps in routine, in rhythm, in gentle attention to carry the legacy of that ancient farmer who saw what others missed. Soft pause. The wind in the grass quiets. And now, we move deeper still. In our next segment, we'll look not at a person, but at a thing silent, durable, and surprisingly mysterious. A tool so basic, it's almost invisible, and yet, its shape helped define human survival for millennia. Next, we'll explore the unearthed secrets of the plow. Let us turn now from people to objects, from flesh and thought to wood and stone, as the rhythm of human life moved further from hunting and toward the soil. A new kind of tool emerged, one that would come to shape not only the earth itself, but the future of entire civilizations. It is simple in appearance. A long handle, a blade or point perhaps of stone, perhaps of hardened wood, and a body designed to cut, to lift, to turn. The plow. Even the word itself sounds sturdy. Unchanging. But the story of the plow is not a straight line. It is a story of slow transformation, quiet experimentation, and lingering mystery. Because despite its importance, the plow's origins remain curiously shadowed. Like ancient furrows long overgrown with grass. Imagine, again, a Bronze Age village. You are a young farmer walking through a field that has been scraped bare by years of hand digging. Your shoulders ache from lifting the hoe. from hacking at roots, from repeating the same motions over and over again. Then one day, someone not necessarily brilliant, but observant ties a pointed stick to an animal yoke. Perhaps it's a digging stick. Perhaps it's a tree branch. Split and honed. It doesn't look like much, but when they drag it through the soil behind an ox, the effect is different. The earth gives way, not easily, not cleanly, but enough. This is the beginning of something called the Ard1 of the earliest known plow types. The Ard does not turn the soil in the way modern plows do. It scratches a shallow line into the ground. A furrow, just deep enough to plant a seed. It is not perfect. In fact, by modern standards, it's quite inefficient. But for the first time, the land does not need to be broken by hand. For the first time, one person assisted by an animal can do in a day what might have taken a group a week. The earliest Ards were likely made entirely of wood, which rarely survives the centuries. This is part of the mystery. Most of what we know comes from indirect clues. Grooves in fossilized soil, peculiar wear marks on bones of domesticated oxen, fragments of wood preserved in bogs or permafrost. The first physical evidence of a true plow appears in Mesopotamia, around 4000 BCE, but hints exist earlier, farther afield in Europe, in South Asia, in China. Did the idea travel from one culture to another? Or was it discovered independently many times over? Archaeologists still debate this. It is difficult to say. Plows evolved slowly. From the scratch plow of the Neolithic to the heavier, wheeled plows of the Iron Age. Some were pulled by oxen, others by donkeys, or even people. Materials changed. Wood gave way to bronze, then iron. Designs improved, but always incrementally. And yet, each version shaped the land differently. In wetter climates, a light plow was useless. It would clog with mud. In drier lands, deeper furrows helped retain moisture. In some places, ridges were built up and planted on. In others, trenches carried water between furrows. Every region adapted. Every soil told its own story. But the plow itself never shouted. It never proclaimed its importance. It simply worked. Again and again. Silent. Relentless. Found in fragments. Guessed at from shadows in the earth. One of the most remarkable discoveries in recent decades came not from a tomb or temple, but from the outline of furrows fossilized beneath an ancient village. Archaeologists, scanning the soil with ground-penetrating radar, noticed the lines parallel, precise, and curiously consistent. The village above them had been rebuilt many times, but the furrows remained, like fingerprints of forgotten labor. Elsewhere, in a peat bog in northern Europe, a remarkably preserved Ard was found, its wooden body still intact, its blade worn smooth by long use. It was simple, even primitive. And yet, when held in the hand, it felt perfectly balanced. A tool made by someone who understood weight, leverage, and the feel of resistance beneath the earth. Sometimes, the plows are found in graves. In one case, a man was buried with his Ard beside him, carefully placed, as if it too were a companion into the afterlife. Perhaps it was. Perhaps it had been. These ancient tools were not just implements, they were extensions of the farmer. Just as a modern writer might speak of their favorite pen, or a violinist of their bow, the Bronze Age farmer may have felt kinship with their plow. It held their struggle, their hopes, their rhythm. And so, while kings carved laws and priests watched the stars, someone kneeling in the soil was guiding a plow forward, pulling life from the ground, one shallow furrow at a time. If you listen closely, even now, you might still hear the soft scrape of wood across earth, the groan of leather harnesses, the low breath of an ox, steady and sure. This is the sound of civilization. Pause. Let the ancient soil settle. Let the rhythms of work dissolve into rest. In our final segment tonight, we'll lift our gaze from the furrows to the firelight, from labor to luxury. We'll explore the world of the elite during this same era, the chieftains and tribal rulers who feasted while others toiled. What did their nights look like? Their tables, their rituals. Now, let the earth fade from your fingers. Brush off the soil. Straighten your back. Let your body remember what it feels like not to labor but to be served. Because tonight, we step into a different kind of world, one still of the Bronze Age, but far removed from the raw hands of the farmer and the aching rhythm of toil. Tonight, you are invited to the chieftain's feast. Imagine you are no longer one of the laborers in the field, but instead one of the rare few born into a different life. You are kin to the chief. Perhaps a cousin, perhaps a trusted advisor, perhaps even the chief themselves. And tonight, there is a celebration! The reason is not important. It might be a seasonal harvest, a birth, a trade agreement with another tribe, or merely the arrival of an honored guest. What matters is the ritual, the feast itself. It begins not with food, but with preparation. 4 days, perhaps longer. The settlement has been busy not with planting, but with gathering. The finest of what the community has to offer is brought forth. Jars of fermented grain, honeycombs pried from forest hives, roots dug not for sustenance, but for flavor, game hunted from nearby woods, wild boar, deer, perhaps even birds netted at the water's edge. A pig has been fattened for weeks in anticipation. It will be slaughtered not casually, but ceremonially, and its flesh roasted over a central fire pit. The skin crisping, the fat sizzling, releasing a savory aroma that settles across the village like a blanket. The banquet hall, if it can be called that, is simple but large. Perhaps it's a longhouse built of timber and thatch, its beams decorated with carvings of ancestors and animals. A long fire burns down the center, smoke rising up to escape through a hole in the roof. Benches or woven mats line the edges. The chieftain's place is marked perhaps with a carved stool or a raised platform. There is no throne, no crown, just quiet signs of status. Before the meal begins, stories are shared. A barred door? Perhaps. The oldest villager speaks, slowly, deliberately. Tales of distant battles, of spirits in the woods, of how the river first came to be. The room is hushed. Children lean in. Elders nod, not necessarily because they believe, but because they remember. Then comes the ritual of drinking. Large ceramic vessels painted with swirling patterns are uncorked. Inside, mead, or ale, or some early wine, depending on where we are. The drink is passed in a communal cup, each guest taking a slow sip before handing it to the next. The taste is earthy, yeasty, maybe a little sour, but warm, comforting. Now, the meal. It is not served on plates. Instead, guests share large wooden platters. Meat is sliced and passed hand to hand. Roasted tubers, boiled grain mash, flavored with herbs, foraged berries, perhaps fish wrapped in leaves and baked beneath the coals. It is not elegant by modern standards, but it is rich, abundant, and slow. There is laughter, low conversation. A child runs between guests. Someone sings a few notes. Not loud enough to demand attention, but enough to add texture to the night. You eat more than you would in a normal day, perhaps, more than in several days combined. For the workers who helped raise the crops and prepare the food, this is their glimpse into another world, a chance to taste a luxury usually reserved for a few. And for the elite, this feast is not indulgence. It is diplomacy. Sharing food cements alliances. Showing generosity affirms your power. Hospitality is the true marker of a chieftain's success. How many mouths you can feed. How far the smell of your cooking travels. How well you honor the gods, or spirits, or ancestors by keeping the fire burning long into the night. As the fire dims, the air grows thick with smoke and warmth. Some guests drift off to sleep where they sit, Bellies full, backs resting against woven baskets or fur-wrapped bundles, the chieftain remains awake a little longer, perhaps speaking softly to their closest kin. What did the scouts report? Has the northern tribe responded to the trade offer? Is the new field ready for the coming season? Even in moments of comfort, leadership carries weight. Eventually, the fire settles into embers, the voices fade, and silence returns. This is the other side of Bronze Age life. Not the suffering, but the ceremony. Not the labor, but the legacy. And tomorrow, the smoke from the feast will rise again, blending with the mist that rolls across the fields, where others will already be back at work. Coaxing food from the ground, one tired step at a time. Conclusion. Drifting out of the past, and now we return to the present. Slowly, gently, let the past fade like a dream remembered only in fragments. The Bronze Age was not silent, nor simple. It was full of noise, of breath, of small struggles, and unremarked victories. It was ordinary, in the way only the truly ancient can be. You have walked its fields. You have sat at its fires. You have listened to its unrecorded thoughts. Not in ink, but in gestures, in habits, in the soft furrows of the land. Let that quiet endurance stay with you just a little longer. And as sleep finds you, if it hasn't, you already know that the world around you is far more comfortable than the one we left behind. No stone tools. No hand-tied plows. No smoke-clogged rooms or brittle barley mash. Just breath. Soft blankets. And the comfort of history holding you gently in the dark. Good night!